We're going to do a couple things tonight, but first, just every once in a while we get behind these mics and you got to get something sort of off your chest because it really annoys you. If I see one more headline from the scribes who are basically the Democrat propagandists, and I'm sorry to be that mean, I've tried to treat the press respectfully over these years, but, you know, the Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Okay, up until a few hours ago, I was the senior Republican over Social Security in Ways and Means Committee. No one's asked me. I talk about Social Security every single day when I'm here. I've never met a Republican member, ever, talk about cutting Social Security. So yesterday, I grabbed one of the reporters out here and who had it in their story but had no names, walked up, said, okay, tell me who this is because I really need to talk to them. I can't tell you. It's a reporter thing. I can't explain that to you. No, you need to tell me who's telling you to write stories that the Republicans intend to cut Social Security. I'm the ranking Republican, I was up until a few hours ago, over Social Security. I've spent the last year of my life working on it. No, I can't tell you who. If you're going to make crap up, stop doing it in a way that you hurt people. You know, for my Democrat colleagues, I know power. I know you desperately want to be back in charge. But the fact of the matter is the math is the math. You all saw the CBO numbers from a couple days ago. Social Security runs out of money in 10 years. Do you care? The fact that CBO is saying there's going to be a 23% cut in Social Security recipients' checks in 10 years. We will double senior poverty. Do you care? Or is the politics of weaponizing it more important than saving retirement security? This is perverse. And this is called reporting around here. If you want to weaponize something that doesn't crush people. I feel better getting that off my chest. All right. I want to do a little something I consider a bit amusing and maybe a little sadistic. A week ago or so when we were here, I did a presentation on structural deficit. And I was trying to talk to the new members of Congress, my friend from Oklahoma, others. What's actually going on? Where does the debt come from? The fact that 10 years from now, you have almost a $2 trillion structural deficit. And that $2 trillion is functioning interest, $1 trillion, and the growth in Medicare, and a little bit of Medicaid. And then I did something I almost never do. I actually read the comments. And look, I'm appreciative. Almost 600-some thousand people have watched the YouTube video. And you'd get these comments like, well, cut foreign aid, that will balance the budget. Just don't pay members of Congress and Senate, and that will balance the budget. So we had a conversation in our office. How do I explain the scale? Look, if you're not used to 12 zeros, or in this case, current deficit, 14, or if we're at 31 trillion, that's 14 zeros. If you're not comfortable with the math, maybe I can find an easy way to discuss this. And if this comes across a bit sarcastic, I mean it too. So we actually built a little calendar. And we thought this would be sort of fun because we have too many people out there. They hear the political class get behind the microphone and say, we have a spending problem. And then they come up with stupid ideas that really don't save us. So let's actually walk through these. Let's start with the one I consider most amusing. A number of the comments were, just don't pay members of Congress and the Senate. Okay, great. So this is a calendar of the year. 12 months, 365 days. If I said, this is just the borrowing. So this is a calendar. Every day we borrow the equal amount, and we're going to base it on last year's borrowing, so it's a real number. If you didn't pay any member of Congress, maybe we shouldn't get paid for the quality of our work. I'm not going to argue about that. How much of the debt deficit would it take care of? Well, it turns out it's this little tiny sliver down here. We calculate it's about 28 minutes for an entire year. That's all you got. You got a whole 28 minutes. What would you like to do with the other 365 days, 364 days, 23 hours, or 23 and a half hours? You get the point. I know it may make you feel better. I lashed out. I was mad. But you have a country that structurally is going to be buried in a scale of debt where you're starting to flirt with a debt crisis and a failed bond auction in a decade or so. This is not a game. This level of debt takes down a republic. So let's do a couple of the others here just for the fun of it. I'll explain what these colors. So whatever color that is, I guess that's like a turquoise. Foreign aid. Every dime of foreign aid. If you removed it, hey, functioning, you just got rid of maybe 17 days, and we threw everything into it. So you got rid of 17 days of borrowing. Okay, what would you like to do with the rest of the year? Well, if we got rid of the 2017 tax reform and played the fake scoring that every dime would come in and you didn't lose the growth effects that we got from the tax reform and all those other things, you basically get 2 weeks of borrowing. Okay, well, this obviously isn't working. So if we went to a marginal 50% tax rate, 50% tax rate, which some of the Democrats have actually proposed, you basically take care of 6 weeks of borrowing. Now, you slowed down the economy, but let's just pretend the money keeps coming in. You walk through, hey, how about a 35% marginal tax rate on corporations? Well, you maybe get another month and a half of borrowing, just borrowing coverage. And that's assuming that you get all the revenues in and you haven't slowed down the economy, slowed down GDP, which is pretend. Okay, let's do one of my others. You take out itemized deductions. Okay, you got rid of a week. To understand almost all the ideas that are out there, really, on the scale of it, if you threw them all in, you can't even get rid of half the year's borrowing. And that's for that last year. Understand, this year we're going to probably borrow a little less than $1 trillion. In 10 years, we've doubled it. And I beg of our brothers and sisters here, if the Democrats don't want to help, don't want to play, don't want to tell the truth about the math, and the math will always win, I beg my Republican brothers and sisters, let's be the truth tellers. And yes, there's waste and fraud. As of a couple hours ago, I just became the chairman of the Oversight Committee in Ways and Means. And there is waste and fraud we are going to grind into. There's a chance unemployment fraud, some of the pandemic fraud, may be the largest fraud in human history. And we're going to find out what happened. But I need you to think of our world and our government. We functionally have become an insurance company with an army. So I want to walk through a couple of the other comments you get just so I can get them off my chest. When you look around the House here, you notice there's no people here. These are what we call the special orders. It's a chance for members to come to the mic and walk through something, tell a story. But we're on probably 1,000 televisions around Capitol Hill. So sometimes I do this. I'm not actually talking to my constituents in home in Arizona. I'm actually talking to the staff. I'm talking to the new members of Congress to help them understand. Here's the numbers I see. I'm the senior Republican in the House on something called the Joint Economic Committee. So I have a handful of economists who are just freaky smart, who are in my office pounding information in my head every single day. I know it's not the shiny objects. We want to talk about, a laptop with secret documents and a Chinese spy and this and that. Those are shiny objects that you can see on cable television tonight. I will argue these numbers are what take out the republic. So let's actually go over some of the other comments I get over and over and over and over, particularly when I've talked about Social Security. And this is back to the cruelty the Democrats and the press have been doing this last 2 weeks, trying to light people's hair on fire with basically, what's the proper term? Oh yeah, lies. For the average American who's going into Social Security today, Remember, I keep seeing these comments, if I could just get all my money back. Okay. If you were willing to make a deal with the Republic saying if I gave you back all your money on Social Security and Medicare, would you sign up for that deal? Because we'd take it in a moment. Because when you see what you get back, you realize this is actually where much of the structural deficit comes from. And when people say, well, the money, there's no lockbox. You don't want it in a lockbox. You want it in T-bills so you get interest back. Social Security for years ran a surplus. That was building the trust fund because we had this demographic bubble coming called baby boomers. We saved and saved and saved and saved. And then a couple years ago, we started having more people move into retirement than functionally what they were paying, workers were paying. And so every month when the check goes out, you take the FICA income that's associated with the old age survivor system, the Social Security system, send that out, but we needed a little bit more. So Social Security would take its Treasury bill, present it to the Treasury. Treasury would give them cash plus some interest. For many years, the interest rate was actually a spiff over higher what you would get on a market T-bill. The money wasn't stolen. It was put into T-bills, just like you might do with your extra savings. Stop making stuff up. So the average American, the typical retiring couple, let's do it that way because it's easier math, will receive, well, let's not do the Medicare number. Let's first do the Social Security. That couple, the average, over a lifetime of work, so this is 35 plus quarters, sometimes 40 quarters, will put in $625,000 in FICA on the Social Security portion of that tax. And they're going to get back a little under $700,000. So they make a little bit of money. Now, the reality, if you had put that money in your IRA or something like that, it would have been multiples of this. And if you remember, George Bush tried to have the conversation of taking, particularly young people, allowing them to take a sliver and put it in private accounts because it would have a much higher rate of return. And the Democrats and the unions went berserk on that. But now we can look back 25, 30 years, and it would have been a hell of a lot better today for Americans if we had done it. But the politics of it is the control freaks want to control your money. This is in inflation-adjusted dollars, so it's like for like. You get your money back, plus a small spiff on Social Security. You could have had a lot more if you put it in markets and other places, but you get your money back inflation-adjusted. Okay, that's not what drives the debt. Our problem on Social Security is our number of workers. It's Medicare. And this is hard to talk about, but math is math. And I know many people will come up to me, Schweiker, you can't talk about that. You're going to get unelected. I'm in one of the most competitive districts in America. But at least I'm in one of the best educated, smartest districts in America and understand whether you like me or not, I'm telling you the truth on the math. Here is the substantial portion that drives about 3/4 of all U.S. sovereign debt. The average couple in their lifetime of working will put in $161,000 into Medicare. Remember, the Medicare tax you pay as part of your FICA, your payroll tax, is just for the Part A, the hospital portion. The rest of the health care spending you get when you become 65 and are on Medicare comes out of the general fund. The average tax-paying couple put in that $161,000, and they're going to get back $522,000. And this number is based on sort of before the inflation cycle. We're working on some math, but I wasn't able to vet it, that the amount of money we expect in medical costs for our brothers and sisters on Medicare actually has gone up rather substantially, which that means when you say 161, 500 plus, that gap, now multiply that towards how many? 70 million Americans, 65 up, and the number grows with baby boomers? Because what, just the baby boom population is what, 76 million? You see the driver of U.S. sovereign debt. The solution is not cutting. The solution is having a revolution of the cost. Obamacare was a financing bill. It's who had to pay and who got subsidized. Actually, it was mostly about subsidizing. The Republican alternative actually spread out the actuarial numbers so you got some efficiencies, but it was still about who had to pay and who got subsidized. Medicare for All is all about subsidies, but those are financing bills. They don't touch the problem. The real problem is the cost of delivering healthcare services. And for people who might say, whoa, he's not giving us the solutions, go look at the probably 70 hours I have over the last few years on the floor here. Half those were bringing solutions. Most of my solutions are uncomfortable because they require disruptions. It's technology. It's the thing you can blow into that knows you have the flu and allowing it to prescribe. Taking on the big things, curing diseases. Turns out cures are remarkable at crashing the price of healthcare and just the basic morality of it. If diabetes is 33% of all healthcare spending, and there's chance out there that there's been some success in curing type 1 with a CRISPR-altered stem cell treatment, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but the literature right now says there's about 6 people who've been cured of type 1. We need to know this. We need to find out over the next decade, could it be for type 2? What do we do in the Farm Bill on nutrition support and everything else? Is that the possibility? Because if you could disrupt that cost, do you realize if you could disrupt just half of the diabetics cost in this country, you'd actually wipe out the substantial portion of the next 30 years' debt. These are moral, but they're also financial ideas, and we run away from them. It's almost easier for members of Congress to talk about cuts than it is to competition to disrupt business models. So understand, the next time you have someone saying, well, if I could just get all my money I paid back in FICA taxes, we'll make that deal, because you're getting that couple is getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars more than they put in. It's the math. Whether you feel that way or not, it's the math. And that's the primary driver of U.S. sovereign debt. Now, look, we made this deal. This is a societal contract. People worked their hearts out. They paid into FICA. We made a deal as a society. Our job as the brain trust here as members of Congress, we're going to figure out how to make this work. And you start to look at how fast these numbers are eroding. I've already said this a couple times, maybe seeing it on a board makes it easier. And I'm trying, one of the criticisms was too many of my boards had too many numbers on them. I'm trying to make them easier to read. Let me know if I'm succeeding, but I'm trying. This is a really simple chart. It basically says, here's where we are today. In a decade, structurally, just functionally, Medicare, Medicaid, and then if I add in interest, then there's another. Functionally, just my cost there, I'm heading towards $1 trillion+ just for my Medicare. Medicaid adds another $250 billion of borrowing, and then somewhere in there I have almost $1 trillion of interest. That's what I look like a decade from now. So people run around here and say, I'm going to cut and give you a 10-year balanced budget. Okay, tell me what part of paying our bonds you're going to cut. That's $1 trillion of the deficit 10 years from now. You got to do that. All the people, you're going to default if you don't raise the debt ceiling. No, you're not. And I'll do another presentation in coming weeks on stop making crap up. United States has plenty of cash flow to cover our sovereign debts and the majority of our earned entitlements. It's a lot of the discretionary we don't have enough cash for. These are big, complicated, and then to have, as I started with, the trite Democrats and the wanting an edge in the press, making it really hard to do something that's got to happen bipartisan. So, Mr. Speaker, I know we're up against time. The last one I'm just going to show very, very quickly is this is your 10-year chart. It's very, very simple. This is Social Security. This is the health care entitlements. This is everything else. This is the entitlement board. So this is what we're up against. And Mr. Speaker, I appreciate tolerance for everyone. If I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. Maybe too much caffeine and too much just being damn cranky around here. And with that, I yield back.